This is the most important episode of Tenali RK and the reason why I came forth to write and make this series. Make sure you watch it till the end for this one. We approached the agents of RA with what footage we had recorded as a confession. We had received unofficially official permissions to clear the menace planned against the country. It was a calm day over the ocean. The sun was just rising. RK and I gasped at the beauty of the scenery. There was a cool breeze that gave us calm. But even in this scenario, a certain two people were sweating. We had already dropped off the three thieves as a feast to the big fish. They had come all the way from a foreign land only to be fed to the sharks of the Bay of Bengal. I suppose this is a goodbye. It's been nice working with you, RK said to the HR and head of sales. I'll pay you, leave us, the HR pleaded. That was a serious insult to my nationalism. If he thought I'd sell my country's pride for a price, he deserved to be punished even more. If you believe in a divine, pray to him or her to give you a sense to not backstab your own country in a next life, I said sharply. Hopefully laws come up to punish capital traitors with such strict punishments. Until then, on the account of your treason, not just against me, but against the country, adios, ciao, hasta la vista, tata, goodbye, gaya, khatam. RK collected blood samples from them both. We dropped them off in the middle of nowhere. They had a good toolkit all right, but the only problem is they added two wrong people to mess with into it, Krishna Deva Raya and Tenali RK. Atul and Vishal's remains were found in deep forest. They were declared to have been killed by the wild. The villagers had been warned not to roam deep in the jungles but only visit the temple on the main path. Raw agents helped close the case as an accident. We knew the mission had not ended. We still had to make contact with the health minister of the country, know where the paintings were, and retract them. This was a Herculean task. His level of security exceeded my reach. I knew still the universe would hold a plan. So we went to ask Kali and Kala Bhairava to show us a path, thorny or easy, so that either way we'd walk it and achieve what was necessary. There was a pandit in his mid-30s being guided into the shrine. He seemed to be blind, so the other pandit was guiding him inside. I did not remember seeing him before, but we stood in a trance as he recited mantras and performed puja for the deities. The temple hundi was getting full with the flood of devotees that kept visiting. The blind pandit was again guided out of the shrine. He was apparently the senior pandit of the appointed family to perform regular rituals here. I learned of their financial status to have been bad. Even previously, I had offered their family a token amount of more than their salary. They had denied. He introduced himself as Shravan. Ironically, Shravan meant he who listens. He said that he had lost his eyes early in childhood due to an accident, which meant growing up, he learned all the mantras and shastras just by listening. There would have been no opportunity for him to read and learn. A name well suited, I thought. A few men dressed as professionals walked into the premises of the temple. They seemed serious. Approaching me straight ahead, they asked if I was Krishna Deva Raya. I thought it was something related to our other adventures with lions and sharks. I said yes. They handed me summons from the endowments department of the government. I did not quite realize what was happening. The summons read that the site was a Hindu institution, and as per the Endowments Act of India, it was to be protected by the Endowments Department. Bottom line, they were to take over the temple from our hands. But I rebuilt it, I shrieked. They replied that I could take it up in a court of law. They added that the fact that this is a historic site makes it additionally their right to take over. I called my lawyer to ask what this Endowment Act was. The revelations were shocking. The British rulers had imposed a rule on Hindus that their temples be handled only by them. These had become manifestations of rebellion against the British rule. People gathered to discuss freedom there, so the British took control over them. But even post-independence, the Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowments Act dictated that the spiritual institutions of just the Hindus be taken over by the government, although this law does not apply to otherwise religious institutions. For about 100 years or more, this temple on this mountain was ignored. No endowments department had found the need to spend a buck and renovate this historical site. But now that there is a hundi and it is getting filled, the endowments department wanted their hands on it. As I realized this, Shravan laughed, much to my surprise. Hundi is the collective fund that people give for the maintenance of the temples. What they donate in Aarti plate is for the Pandit. But now that the government is taking over this temple too, the hundi money will belong to them, and the money that would be offered to the priest would be banned. Wonder not if you see signboards that read offerings in hundi only. Otherwise, the endowments department would not be able to take them. Entry ticket would be put up. Free darshan could have long queues. They will have cameras set up inside the shrine, and their secularly appointed employees will push out the devotees whether or not there is a rush. I have seen the fate of my previous temples. I came here with the hope of a difference, but now that this is being taken over by the government too, I can only laugh at the pitiful condition of ourselves. But the government will pay you, I said, trying to soothe him. Yes, it used to pay me. 30,000 rupees, he replied. Before I could think that was a decent pay for a human being to survive in this economy, he added 30,000 per annum. And that, folks, is disgusting. I am glad at least the fellow religious people like the Christians and the Muslims don't have to face the wrath of the endowments department. And yet again, we teach our society jokes such as democracy and secularism. They are jokes because the laws differ from one to another. They are jokes because just the temples which have revenue are looked after by the endowments department. The rest go to crumble. I felt like puking. RK insisted that we go to court and try our luck there. I asked my lawyer to file a petition. In the meanwhile, we set out to meet the big vulture, the health minister who held our paintings in his control. My resourceful uncle took an appointment with him. There were no more than 15 days for Shivratri and 16 days for my art exhibition. A missing case filed on my HR and head of sales on one hand, the event organizing on the other, with the added headache of the endowments department trying to control our temple and having to deal with one of the most powerful and corrupt politicians of the nation who wouldn't have headaches. But the healing I got from the drums of Kali brought great calm. As expected, we received an update from the PM office that the Prime Minister wanted to pay a visit and support the artists. We gladly greeted and announced it in the newspaper as to him being the chief guest. My uncle set up the meet with the health minister with the excuse that we wanted to invite him to the event. I asked RK to do his best, what he generally does. A flight to his city. Chai samosa, vada pav, other street foods. These were our stress busters for the time being. The moment did come. RK and I dressed our best and walked into his home as diplomats. There were few goons who dressed a little out of their pay grade to look professional. He gave us tea, which we looked at as poison. It doesn't matter if he didn't mix it. Just water from an evil man would be equivalent to drinking toxicants. RK came straight to the point. Can we discuss in private? RK asked the minister, talking about his bodyguards. The health minister, with a smile, asked them to leave the room. RK stood up. We know you have the paintings. You know we have more paintings to cover for the losses, he said. The health minister tried to look puzzled. No, don't act. You're not DiCaprio, we're not the Oscars. Please, at least give us enough credit for finding you. We have a confession from our HR and head of sales, the reason why they're undercover and you can't reach them. RK said, pulling out their phones from his pockets. The health minister wasn't even prepared how to deny. We could sense his guilt. Good for you, we hit the Prime Minister. Give us back the paintings, we'll help you humiliate the Prime Minister out of his chair. We both benefit, what say? RK said with glee. I heard how you throw baits for fish to catch. The health minister replied, getting up. You played the same trick with the Sarpanch, I hear. You cannot prove anything that you have claimed. What you don't know is that your HR is my distant niece, a man I've seen grow from childhood. I realize he's not reachable because he is really not reachable, and not because he turned against me. So, your confession drama wouldn't stand against me. If that is all, you may leave. I wanted to see what RK's next move would be, or if it was a checkmate to the genius. RK smiled naturally. He walked to the door between our room and the other, looked at the ceilings. He laughed out loud. Dear sir, he spoke. I was a painter in Devpur. I know paint. The colors, the mix of it. The false roofing of that room is darker as compared to the false roofing of this room. Which means this was recently painted. This was no repainting session as it wasn't done to the whole house. I wouldn't hurt your intelligence by saying that you looked up as you spoke. No, it only happens in films. But your ego made you want to make us sit in the very room where you hid the paintings in plain sight. The false roofing alone is painted because it was reconstructed. Because it was broken before. And that is because you hid the 4 stolen paintings there. Am I Sherlocking enough, or do you want the Byomkesh Bakshi side of me too? You can't prove it, he said. RK laughed beautifully and replied, the fact that you fumbled and didn't even deny that you hid them here proves that they're here. Anyway, we are not really here for the paintings. Let us build your trust. This is no game. This Shivaratri, come to our Shiva Puja and follow up the event in the art exhibition. We'll show you how worthy we are for your goals. We'll bring the Prime Minister down for you, and in return, you'll give us our paintings back. Saying this, RK walked straight out without even waiting for his response. He bossed around the health minister as if he were a baby boy who just drank bottled milk. I wondered if there were limitations to his bossing around. I quietly got up, fake smiled at the minister, and stepped out. Our first hearing at the High Court regarding the temple case had come up. When you have money, you surely can push forward the urgency of cases. When you have money, you can do many things in this nation without being caught. That's the punchline of the joke that democracy has become today. I stood in the cage. I was fighting against a government injustice with a government employee as a judge. Of course, the result was obvious. The court saw that the defendant was right and that the temple would belong to the government of the state. All the money I spent on the property of the endowments department would be considered as charity as per Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowments Act. Claims were made that the site was previously under endowments department and that I came into their space and rebuilt it, making it charitable work. No one had answers as to why the temple was left uncared for so many decades if it was already under endowments department. You need to wait for days to get your license sent to you or any job done at a government facility. But to occupy a profitable temple, our endowments department would not delay a moment. They set up cameras inside the shrine as predicted by Shravan. A secular set of employees, both Hindu and non-Hindu, were employed in the temple. Ticket cost for darshan was 30 rupees. 1 lakh visitors would mean 30 lakhs. Free darshan was a longer line. RK's idol that I had installed to forever stand in front of Kali was moved to a corner as an antique piece. The hall of pillars, which I allocated for devotees to do their japa, was now a prasad purchasing counter, each pack costing 60 rupees. They commercialized our spiritual center and the employees could treat the devotees any way they wanted. The priest we appointed was given a salary of 30,000 per annum. Signboards that read, "All offerings must be put in hundi only," were very shamelessly put up. They sealed the lock to the hundi and kept it with them so they could come and collect as they pleased. RK and I went for the darshan of Kali. There was no rush for the moment, but the employees had to push us out because the cameras were watching. What was once a place of enlightenment for RK is now a place he can just see for seconds and be pushed out. I repeat again, let's not tell democracy and other jokes in our textbooks. I dug in to know more. India holds more than 2 million Hindu temples and 90% of the temples in southern India are under government control, whereas only 50 to 60% of North Indian temples are under the government. Many of the main temples were destroyed by invaders in the north, thereby leaving very few ancient temples as compared to the south. So the revenue today that the north makes is notably less than in south. Hence, the control over the southern temples is more than in the north. This clearly shows that the Endowments Act is not to take care of all the temples equally, but to catch the ones that produce paisa. Probably the term paisa hi paramatma fits best to the Indian scenario. Tirupati temple alone generates 800 crore revenue per year as of today, with an additional fixed deposit of 14,000 crores. Many temples as Vaishno Devi turning up 600 crores, Shirdi generating 400 crores, etc. Indian temples cumulatively collect thousands of crores every year for the welfare of temples and temples alone. But this government control is splitting the temple revenues as such. 20% of it goes to the so-called administration charges, 10% to electricity and other charges, 30% to the salaries of the employees who treat devotees with utmost disrespect, and has people from non-Hindu background who don't even respect the process of idol worshipping. 10% more goes to common goods funds. The rest goes to appeasement politics. Imagine devotees maintaining their own temples. There are a number of volunteers who would step forward to keep up the maintenance of them. How much costs could we cut down? How much funds could be used for the betterment of the lives of true devotees? This Endowments Act is a sham. I look at the temples controlled by the government and how shamelessly these ancient sculptural marvels are painted white, as if these morons built them generously yesterday from their own pockets. See, let's compare two things. On one hand, there is Taj Mahal built in the 17th century. For instance, Arunachala Temple's Rajagopuram was finished in the 9th century. Which is more ancient, any intellectual can let me know. So, which should be taken care more in terms of national heritage? Look today, and Arunachala Gopuram has white paint as if it was built yesterday, hiding the inner beauty of the sculptures. And the reason they give for painting is maintenance. But the same people cry over oxidation of Taj Mahal due to industries around. I'll do one thing. I, Krishna Deva Raya, will spend money from my own pockets to paint Taj Mahal with red paint in the same name of maintenance. Would that be okay? No? I rest my case. The rage I got, I wanted to channel all of it into burying the health minister, and I will.
Right now the problem is, I've been talking to so many people, if you say temple, they say revenue. It's very appropriate because when East India Company took over the temples, they put the temples in the revenue department, most appropriate. Because they didn't come here out of their love for the deities for which we were willing to shed our life. They came here because of the revenue, the wealth, the gold, the diamonds, the land. Not love, not devotion, greed is the ruling force. Now we are still talking the same thing. If you say temple, you say revenue. If I say Kaveri, people say revenue. What about the revenue? I know I shouldn't be speaking this language, but because so many people are not getting it, I'm saying this, please listen. If I say your mother, will you say revenue? If I say your wife, will you say revenue? If I say your children, will you say revenue? Then why is it when we say temple, you're saying revenue? It's shameful that we are talking about temples as revenue. But now there's a whole lot of people arguing, their argument is generally, but it was under kings and kings are also government, so it was always under government. This is not true because kings were devotees. Kings were very strong devotees to such a point, in many kingdoms, the deity was the king. The king was a divan or a minister for the deity. So always the deity ruled, only in the deity's name he ruled the country. So they were a different people altogether and there also the contributions came from the people. And I happened to be, this was in Karnataka, I was in Karnataka-Andhra Pradesh border in the Lepakshi temple recently because this is connected to our forefathers. I had been there over 50 years ago, which was a vibrant temple, built during the Krishna Deva Raya's era, fantastic stone monument, all right? And it was a vibrant living temple. Now when I went there, hardly there's anybody, only one man. I asked this one pujari, how much do they pay you? He says 32,000 rupees. I said, not bad per month. He said, no, per annum. Per year, they pay him 32,000 rupees. What kind of management, what kind of service, what kind of atmosphere is that man able to create?
We must congratulate Karnataka on taking the first step to freeing temples. This temple suffocation under government control is the reason why we did Tenali RK. Of all the souls that walk on this motherland, there is just a handful that would actually stand for her. These are dark times where our own fellow citizens are our foes. We might not have the opportunity to meet someone like RK, but surely there is a voice sleeping within you. By 2047, we will have completed 100 years of independence and we are still talking about Hindu temple freedom. This disgusting state of Hindu suppression must change. We are the only community in the world not to have financial freedom. Every religion enjoys their funds in ways they want. We are the only people suppressed to let the governments dictate how the funds we donate should be used. How many devotees are actually benefiting by the government rule, please imply? It is in our hands to change these things. If you are silent, even 100 years after independence, our shrines of worship would not have freedom. If you are silent, the money you donate to hundis for upkeeping of temples will dissolve for other things. If you are silent, your silence is always taken for granted. Even street dogs aren't silent and that's why you are scared of them. The dead should be silent, but the living should be speaking up. Use your sharp voice to silence the unjust chains on Hindu temples. Hindu or not, every Indian should oppose this injustice. Whether someone has followed the whole series or not, watching this episode is quintessential for every Indian. Only you can help us reach it to them. So, request you to trend these hashtags in all social media platforms and tag us. Our social media links in the description below. Let this be the beginning of a wave of rebellion to cut through the chains on temples. In the words of a very wise man, we are not agitators. At the same time, we are not weak. Let's hope for a day when no devotee is pushed out of temples in the name of cameras, where free darshan is a basic right, true devotees are given value, and Hindu funds are used towards the well-being of Hindu devotees. Namaskaram. See you on social media.